Good morning, everyone. Thank you for, I should say, good early afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's special and the final of the three Sony Think AV symposiums, thought leadership symposiums. And today I'm excited to bring you the end user panel. My name is Gary Kay. I'm the founder and director of the Rave Agency. And of course, you know me probably from Rave Pubs. And I'm excited to be joined with some great panelists today. Before I introduce them, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what you're seeing on the screen in front of you. You're going to see me along with the other panelists. We're going to talk about the issues that you're curious about today. And that is, how are they dealing with sort of this new world of working, and what are their plans in the future? And we're going to talk about specifically what technologies they have been finding, discovering, and using to make their lives better and also make their clients' lives better. But also, we're going to talk about some of the future technologies that are coming along that all of us can benefit from. And of course, a lot of that technology is coming from Sony. We're also presenting to you a couple of features. You'll see on the screen, there's a chat feature where you can actually ask questions of the panelists. You can actually ask questions live. I see that, so I'll actually ask them those questions myself. You can direct the questions at a specific panelist. You can direct them to all of the panelists, and I'll pick the right person to start the answer with. You'll also see some polls. We're going to have 3 poll questions during today's 1-hour session. We want you to participate in those polls because it'll help us understand what's going on with regard to the topics we're going to talk about today. And we'll actually give you the poll results live as well. So some of those poll results may, in fact, make questions or maybe we'll submit those to the panel to ponder. So let me first introduce our panel to you, and then we'll jump into the questions. First up for the day, I have Dan Christie as the manager of ITAV services at L3Harris Technologies. I'm excited to have him here today, and he's going to give us a great perspective on things. In fact, I have the first question for him in just a moment. Second, we have someone who's almost right down the street from me, if you consider 2 hours right down the street, Rob Mann, who's the manager of integrated educational technologies at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. I'm here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We are the part of the same flagship university campus, the University of North Carolina campus. Third, we have Juan Lalinde. Juan is the director of supply planning at Full Swing Golf. I can't imagine anyone that doesn't wish they were out at Full Swing Golf facilities today hanging out. But of course, in many parts of the country, it's very cold. So I imagine that you're probably not imagining that right now. But look at that shot that Juan has. It makes you want to be out on a course. And of course, finally, we have Jeff Hastillo with the University of South Carolina, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning Technologies. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today, and thank you for serving on today's panel. I really appreciate you being here, and with your busy lives. I want to first, before I ask first question or submit the first question to you, Dan, I want to congratulate Jeff and Rob. Having served and kind of give the audience a little bit about my role, I've also not only a professor at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, I have been using the equipment that you've been installing for the last 10 or 12 years, because I've been teaching there for 11 years. But I also have been in the AV industry for 30 years. So I kind of a unique perspective, because I see that the challenges that the AV community goes through in trying to implement the technology to make it usable, and the challenges that a professor goes through trying to figure out how to use the stuff you just put in. So I see both sides of it, but I want to congratulate you two gentlemen, specifically Jeff and Rob, because you pulled off something that no other segment of the market pulled off, which is in a matter of less than 2 weeks, back in March, you were told, hey, have a good spring break, to you're not coming back from spring break, to, by the way, not only are you not coming back from spring break, but you also have to make sure that all of our students and all of our faculty are connected. And I want to congratulate you for being part of that community. But I'm going to throw the first question to you, Dan. You're managing 6,000 spaces. That's not the average AV technologist's job. How do you do that in a pandemic at the same time? Tell us how that's been.
So pretty difficult. There are issues that we run into just learning from L3Harris merging together. I went from managing Harris to L3Harris and doubling and 2xing our size space. So we were going from about 2,000, we added 4,000 campuses. So leveraging a lot of the team members that are across all campuses and trying to leverage our business manager relations for IT. Just communicating what we do as a service to our end users, because a lot of times you walk into a conference room and you don't think about the technology. You're thinking about what needs to be said, or what you need to speak to your customer or your team. You walk into the room and things don't work. They don't know who to communicate that to. So a lot of the times, the goal is to communicate. I need new hardware. Where do I get the hardware, and how do we get that across to the enterprise? Because we have about 50,000 employees, that not including our customer base. So getting that information, showing them that, hey, this is the new technology. So Sony is one of our great partners. We partner together with a couple integrators and a couple partners with Logitech and Sony and a couple other guys, where we have predetermined packages, like a huddle room, a small conference room, a medium conference room. We try to hit that 80% mark with a package, kind of like a Rally from Logitech, or the Meetup, and then the Brio that I happen to be on today. And not to say that they're any better than any other product, but we have come to the fact that if we establish one standard, we can deploy it really quickly, and then we can troubleshoot that deployed solution. So if we deploy it in an office and it doesn't work, our computer IT people that are educated on the computer side, but not necessarily on the peripheral USB, we know what settings we need to go through. So it's just an easier workflow, customer workflow, from deploying the package all the way to supporting it.
So sort of what you're saying there is that the consistency of the rooms allows you to not only fix it quickly, but also, I'm guessing, predict what's probably going to happen, or what they're calling about, because it's probably happened somewhere else before. Over the last 10 years, we have certainly done a really good job as an industry connecting things to the network. How much of that has helped your job too? When you're dealing with 6,000 spaces, when I first started teaching at UNC, there was a red phone in every single classroom. We had a problem, we'd call the red phone and somebody'd run across campus. You can't do that nowadays. So tell me what happens. Is it all network based?
Yeah, so interesting fact, because we are security, we do top secret stuff as L3. We're cutting edge as what we provide to our customers and our product. We get hacked quite a bit. So, or they try to, I should say. We don't, but they try to very hard, right? So the Internet of Things, as an AV guy, I started out in the audio and the video world, and I know how to make optics work really well, and I know how to make microphones work really well. And about 10 or 15 years ago, we all saw that. We all, remember, I don't know, from Infocom years ago, said the Internet of Things. What does that mean for us as IT? And we were trying to understand what that meant. Adante came around, all those different platforms that started using not only product that connects with an RJ45 to the network, but as well as the actual information goes across the network. As being in a high secure industry, we can't have a microphone and a camera in a room, because that's pretty much the worst thing in the world. So as the industry builds a door, security puts a lock on it and says, no, you can't go through that. So that's become one of our specialties. As for my team that's underneath, that supports the whole company. We put a box on the network. The network team pokes holes in it and shows us where it's broken, and then we work really hard to try to make it possible. So for an example, as we talked about Logitech Rally, they have a one-touch to join, which is an amazing thing called the tap, right? The tap works with the PC. That PC on our network doesn't work. So we were going to make that our standard, and we were going to start deploying it out. Our team worked diligently with IT. We are part of the IT infrastructure team, but we worked really hard to try to make it work, but security kept finding holes in it. So we had to rip the pilot test bench out, which we did about 20 of them. We deployed about 20 of them. We had to pull them back. So instead of doing that PC, that the tap with the one touch to join and calendaring, which was an amazing feature that Teams Rooms works in Logitech and Zoom as well, we were unable to use that and provide that to our customer for workflow because of security and being on the network. And our network would shut it down. So we've come to the conclusion, hey, we leverage the house PC that's in the room. They already have the security stack that's on it. and the security team knows that equipment, and then we can leverage that equipment with the USB hardware. So the Rally USB, as you know, Logitech came out with the Rally bar just recently, and I'm on the development team with Logitech. So I'm learning ahead of the product being on the market what we can break and what we can't break. So the Android running system is a pretty lucrative to us. We're thinking that we might go to that as long as security approves it, right? And they poke holes to that. If they do and they lock it, then we'll have to find another solution. But
yes, and of course the network allows you to manage the equipment as well. I want to remind everyone that you can ask questions of the panelists. We're going to encourage you to do that because this is not just going to be about me asking them questions. I want to turn to Jeff, because I would say to Jeff, this is like most universities. I would probably steer the question of, hey, you're getting ready to go back to campus. What are you ready? Are you ready to have all those students back? But in fact, you never left. Actually, USC, University of South Carolina, never shut down last semester and actually had the students assimilate on campus. So you were dealing with what we're all about to deal with on campus, which is actually dealing with students that are there live and online at the same time, rather than most universities where they were only having to deal with synchronous live or synchronous online. So your case, you were already dealing with hybrid. Tell us what you did and sort of how you pulled that off so quickly, and sort of what were the tools that were the secret sauce to making that happen?
Yeah, first, I believe it started with really good quality leadership. We're fortunate in that we have that leadership in place here, along with a really top level public health school. So we had a lot of resources as a university that helped us deal with the pandemic, whereas maybe some other universities were struggling a little bit. But we were able to be one of the few large comprehensive universities that was able to make that decision to return to campus and have in-class, in classroom classes in the fall. Our Columbia campus instruction started on August the 20th and expanded, but we also expanded our online course offerings to those who didn't feel safe for returning to campus. But like everyone, in the spring, we had to quickly pivot and transition our faculty to teaching remotely. We knew that that was not going to be long-term, and that at some point we were going to be bringing people back to campus. So our team quickly devised a plan to outfit our existing classroom technology, which was about 494 rooms, I believe it was, so that we could include the capabilities for simultaneous live online instruction and capture, so that we ensure that the students feel like they had the quality not only in the classroom, but for the remote student participating as well. We felt like that experience needed to try to be as close as possible to the in-classroom experience. So we quickly scrambled to try to buy everything under the sun, as all other universities did. We competed, I'm sure, for product, and that was a challenge. But we were able to quickly, over the summer, kind of transition our rooms, or we called it upfit them, to include PTZ cameras and microphones that may have not already been in some of these spaces, to allow that kind of online simultaneous instruction.
Yeah, and I suspect that we're going to come back and revisit that, because I suspect there's going to be some updates that have either already been done or will be done over time, as you learn you need more mics here and there, and you need more sound in places that you didn't think you needed them, and students that are joining remotely maybe having different experiences depending on the classroom that they're being taught in. One of the questions that just popped up from Julie Christian was specifically around the system that Dan mentioned. The system that Dan mentioned from Logitech, which is brand new, is called the Rally Bar. Just go find it. It's called Rally BAR. They have a product following that up called Rally Bar Mini, which is for smaller rooms. The Rally Bar is for medium-sized rooms. My next question I want to direct to Rob Mann. Rob, as a fellow North Carolinian, we escaped the snow that a lot of the country is going through right now, but we also suffered through. We're going back to campus. We think we're going to stay on campus. Oh, go home right away. in the course of literally 2 weeks. And I know that you're going to answer the question the same, that you put in PTZ cameras and audio, but tell me what are the key components? Like, did you all of a sudden have to add streaming to all the classrooms, or were the professors forced home? Were they allowed to use the classrooms? And if they were allowed to use the classrooms, what technology did they use? And where are you right now with regard to making it where, 30 to 60 and 70-year-olds can use the same rooms at the same time?
When everything hit, when everything shut down, we went to the university is closed. So we bought somewhere around 300 or 400 webcams and divvied them out to professors who didn't have them. We stole laptops from all over campus and issued them to professors and to students who needed them, who didn't have that technology themselves, so that people could stay connected. And we did the make it work. But then we came back in August, just like South Carolina. We're not nearly the same size, of course, but we had the similar challenge of we're going to be back. And last semester, we did 19% of classes were face-to-face, 49% were purely online, and that's another 32% that were hybrid, either mixed classes where students had the option to stay home or come to class, or some where they would rotate the in-person through for like labs, where, okay, you're on an A-B type schedule. We kind of built rooms. We kind of came up with 2 tiers, the down and dirty one, which was basically a glorified webcam in a room so the professor could at least stream, and we designed those for asynchronous learning. This is going to be recorded via Zoom or Echo 360 or whatever your platform of choice was, but designed for the students to watch later. But you could use the classroom for instruction. And then we upgraded a lot of rooms to add PTZ cameras, beam array microphones in the ceiling so that they could pick up student interaction in the classroom as well as the far site. So it didn't matter which end you were on. If a student asked a question, you could hear them. So that proved pretty successful. And then we worked with our space planning so that people who needed that capability could be put in the right room, which led to some gruntled faculty. I won't say they were disgruntled, but some of them who what I'm used to teaching in this room, I want to teach in it. Well, no, you have to walk 4 doors down and teach in that room instead, but you get everything you need. We have a DE team that focuses on running our dedicated traditional distance education classrooms that have control rooms. And we've been able to leverage Zoom and some other technology so that they're able to remotely support these tier 3 rooms, as we're calling them. We actually recently in August brought a brand new building online, which is 145,000 square feet, that we did all AV over IP, which turned out to be really great because everything ties into the control room. And in those rooms, the instructor just puts in a ticket to say, I want online support for my class. I meet Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, this date. They come in and they teach. And the control room is able to run the cameras, to run the mics, set the sessions up, do everything for them. So it's been a very hands-on approach, but supportable because one person in the control room can run 4 or 5 classrooms at the same time, and the AV over IP allows us to do anywhere in the building, anywhere we want. So,
yeah, and I want to ask you about that. By the way, whose AV over IP system are you using? Just real quickly.
We went with the Extron Nav solution.
Okay.
In part because of their codec that lets you throttle your bandwidth. So we're not doing 8264. So we're not sending every frame every second, and made our networking people very happy.
Yeah, you have the ability to do variable bandwidth, and you select it in the IT department, decide what they're willing to give you. You max out what they're willing to give you, and you go from there. The reason I asked you that is there's been a lot of consternation, a lot of worry, and a lot of delay in the deployment of AV over IP because I think a lot of people thought it wasn't ready for prime time, but you're rolling it out on campus. How's it working for you, just specifically with quality?
We're great. We have next to the brand new building. We actually, about 12 months prior to the building getting commissioned, we built a pilot room using the same technology, same model, and worked out a gold config for our switches. We're able to do a nice shakedown cruise with it because I couldn't afford to have a building go offline on the first day of classes. So that really helped us. We just put it in our film studies building, which is using 4K technology, putting a 4K projector in their main cinema. We also have a big ballroom, multi-use space where the flexibility of AV over IP came in handy. And it's something we looked at very closely. We almost went traditional matrix switch with the building, but at the last minute felt that the technology had become second generation, so they kind of worked out the bugs from the first time around. And we've been thrilled with it. We're looking to roll it out into existing buildings on campus if we can.
Yeah, and the just real quickly, my classroom at UNC was the first university classroom to do the beta testing of the Extron Nav AV over IP system, and I think that what you did was a good idea, was to kind of play around with it first in one room and then deploy it globally. And I think that you'll find that deployment globally will be simple now. The first question is up. I want you to answer it. Is do you plan to reconfigure your office space? And if so, of course, I think the answer is yes. What technology do you envision being used? And they want you to of those four, or say all of the above, of the three, or say all of the above. Check that out. I do want to direct my next question to Juan. Juan, first off, I want one of yours for my house. So get in touch with me. Let me know, because I want that in my basement. Second, golf simulator would be nice to have right now. Play some, get outside and kind of simulate playing outside, especially in the wintertime. But first off, congratulations. Your company, you kind of had to make a bet, right? I mean, because your a lot of your equipment comes from overseas, and you kind of had to make a bet. Is it worth it? And you made the right bet, considering companies like Peloton and others who have found that people are staying home a little bit more and spending more money at home, and it worked out well for you. Talk about the technology that you bet on.
Well, for us, having that relationship with folks like Sony has been paramount. I mean, we started working with them closely in 2018. Before, we were kind of like a small shop for them, so it was not about full swing. So once we started working directly with them, we kind of opened the door to a whole different room. At that stage, the prices on the laser projectors, which were critical for what we wanted to do with new software and new games, allowed us to offer a better experience to the customers. At that stage, Topgolf, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Topgolf, we managed their swing suites. So not the outdoor experiences, but the indoor experiences, they use our technology. So by partnering with Sony and the laser projectors, especially on the professional side, the level of warranties and the abuse they take, it's phenomenal. I mean, our calls for tech support on projection alone went down about 50 to 60%, just because the nature of the laser versus lamp. So that part of the technology was critical, and we I mean, when you bring up stuff from China or Vietnam or wherever you are, especially in a pandemic, when you tag the Chinese New Year on top of a shutdown, that is significant. And so we kind of gambled on that and brought in a lot of inventory ahead of time in order to continue supporting our customers. What was interesting is that in 2019, we started seeing a shift in our market where commercial installations were through the roof, and when residential was like 90% and 10% commercial, it swapped to like 65 commercial and the rest residential. COVID hit, boom, hotels shut down, restaurants shut down, bars shut down, everything shut down. So residential started spiking. And luckily enough, we were able to plan ahead, and because we have installers across the country, even with travel restrictions, we were able to continue servicing people locally by just having to drive up the road and just increasing our protocols. But the coordination with our partners was paramount for us to be able to continue operating that way.
You bring up a really great point, and that is that, if we were on a panel like this 10 years ago, we would all be talking about we'd be using the term vendor more than we're using the term partner. I think things have changed. I think Sony's been a driver behind that in creating partnerships rather than vendor relationships, because you do need to know, hey, I need your honest opinion. Is this going to work? I'm making a big gamble here. Is this worth the time and the effort at this moment in time? And also with regard to laser being a new technology, for example, as a couple of you've referenced, but also, availability of products. Without the relationship with the partners, that would have been difficult. Nathan Haynes asked a question, which I want him to clarify, because his question was, do you think converged master software would help teachers use video conferencing more effectively? I think what he's asking about maybe whether, something like, universal compatibility of UCC systems, but I'm not sure. So I want Nathan, if you don't mind retyping that question, rewording it, because I don't know if you're talking about in-class software like PowerPoint being compatible with Zoom, or are you asking about, being able to start a class with Zoom or Teams with one touch rather than having to go back and forth between the platforms? So if you don't mind re-asking that question, please do consider posting a question to our panel. We do have the results from our first poll, and the answer was all of the above. IoT, AI, and enhanced remote capabilities, of course, came in as our top result at 42% of the vote. All of the above was 45. So it looks like there's a lot of technology going in right now. I'm going to come back. I'm actually going to shoot that question back to Jeff. I want to ask you specifically, if you had a crystal ball and you could develop the product that would basically save your campus life right now, like is there something you've been operating now during a pandemic for over a year? Right? I mean, almost a year. It'll be a year on spring break. What piece of equipment are you missing, or what extra thing do you think that you could use right now that would make your job a lot easier?
Excellent question. I have to kind of think about the classroom space and the technology that we're applying in that space. One of the biggest improvements that we've been able to make recently is actually using beamforming microphone systems. It was just something that we've never used before until recently. To be honest, we had the old lavalier belt pack with faculty walking around and trying to put technology in to handle noise reduction and echo cancellation technology. And the improvements of that technology has just been really impressive for us. And we've been able to apply it in a number of spaces. And I think that that's probably the most transformative technology that we've adopted recently and actually applied in the classroom space.
Yeah, I think, I mean, beamforming and technology and speaking from a professor standpoint, having to remember to check the batteries to make sure they weren't going to die halfway through the class, and then having a student say, I can't hear you anymore, or doing a recording and not realizing it until after the student's watching the recording that it got cut off. Nathan said, yeah, I was right on that question. I'm going to guess that the answer, Rob, is yes, that you would love to have a platform that would allow you to move between UCC systems simply with a one touch. Because right now you kind of have to decide if you're going to put Zoom in or Teams in or Blue Jeans or PEXIP, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the things with everything tying into the computer through a soft codec is we're a Zoom Echo 360 campus. But if you want to use something else, you can, because the cameras and the mics all tie in through AV Bridge back into through USB to the computer. So it doesn't really matter what platform you're using. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And one good thing of everyone having to go home and that semester where everybody had to do stuff from home is people learned how to do a basic Zoom session or whatever product they were using. So the professor now, we no longer have to teach them how to open a session and do this other stuff. They just come in and open the session, and with everything tying into the computer, it automatically boots up and turns on. So when they come in, for example, in most of our classes where we have PTZ cameras, we have on the touchscreen control 2 or 3 presets, and they just come in and go, I'm going to be at the lectern today. and that's all they have to do. And with the beam array microphones, I echo those. We put those in. We love them. It picks up the whole room. Everything's nice and clear. They then just teach, and if they want to go up and talk at the whiteboard, they don't have to worry about it. They just do that. So the making everything tie in through soft codecs, I think, has gotten us as near to that as we can without mandating something. And I also want to echo back to Juan. We've been laser projectors. We were early adapters of that technology. We're 100% laser across campus. And that and the beam array have made the tech very reliable in the room, where the professor just comes in and hits the on button, and then they're off and running. And everything's on within 10 seconds. They're not having to wait there for 45 seconds for something to warm up or whatever. They just come in and they go.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask Juan the same question, because both of you mentioned laser projectors. But Rob, what models of Sony projectors do you know off the top of your head that you have in most of your classrooms?
Oh yeah, we started off with the FHZ55, which was the very first one that came out. The first 6 months they were released, I had 50 in the air. We ended up being 100% laser a year or two ago. The PHZ10, PHZ12. I'm getting ready to buy a bunch of PHZ60s, which I'm sure my sales rep is loving hearing. But that's really been our workhorse line. We've got a few of the FHZ 120s for our large venue, the 10,000 lumen ones. But we've been really happy with the lower end workhorse model. We figured out total cost of ownership and figured out that we could buy 3 lasers for the cost of buying and operating 2 lamped projectors. So even though they cost a little bit more on the front end, it was worth it. And the resulting drop in service calls has been a unexpected bonus. We don't have projectors go out in the middle of classes. Where I last bought lamps 3 years ago, and like I said, since then we've completely got rid of all lamped projectors. So
Juan, do you want to answer Kevin Nicorak's question as well? Which projectors?
Yeah, we use we've used the 120s also, but normally only on the PGA show when we have we have them on. There's a lot of brightness in there. We normally use the BPL FHC 70 and 75. The 70 is our core. We use it in our pro series, and some of our pro athletes have those in their homes. So yeah, they're fantastic. It's we have those in our showrooms too. We have actually a speakeasy in our headquarters in Carlsbad, and it's one of the highlights once you walk in. It's beautiful. It's a black projector and it's amazing. And we go through like 40 of those a week.
Yeah, I'm sure they like hearing that. Dan, I got a question with you regard to auto tracking cameras, and I want to actually ask the whole panel of this question, specifically the university guys as well. What have you had success with, and are you trying to deploy them, or what are you dealing with when you're talking about larger rooms where you have someone on this side of the room speaking, all of a sudden someone speaking on this side? Are you deploying that yet? I know that the Rally Bar has that functionality built in through the second camera that's built into it, but I'm curious, specifically cameras that are auto tracking designed for that. What has been your success or failures there?
So we did try going with the Shore system in the past, where they can take logic from the Shore MX910 ceiling mics, and then you convert them into a basic RS-232 over the network. We don't have a ton of spaces like that. A lot of our spaces are more in the medium size. So generally in those large, anytime we have VPs, we go with the higher end Sony cameras that are PTZ, and they're controlled through a traditional control system, or we man them with the Sony joysticks. Most of all of our high-end spaces have the high-end Sony PTZ cameras in them. The B series, the 9000 is my kind of go-to camera. It's got a 4K chip in it, and the color correction is, I can have 6 in the same room, and just out of the box, the color is pretty much on. So we're not too, but as far as beam tracking, obviously Sennheiser just came out with QSC. And that seems like the future for us. For QSC is kind of does the camera, the touch panel, the DSP all in one. But I know Sony does have one, and we are looking into Sony's. They're going to give us a demo. We haven't received it yet, but we're waiting. to see what that looks like and how easy that is to integrate with QSC and the control side of that side. But we don't have a ton of experience with it. We'd like to put a man in front of the camera.
Yeah, I want to ask
behind the camera.
I want to turn that question on to Jeff and Rob. But before we do, I want to mention that the second poll question is up. When do you expect postponed AV projects to resume? This is an important question. I'm curious about this too. Is when are you going to actually seeing these projects that have been put on hold? I know a number of projects that have been put on hold. When are they going to resume? And I think, Dan, you could ask that question when we get the results. I'll see if you agree with the answer to this question. But for the university guys. I would love to have an auto tracking camera in my classroom. They are quite a bit more expensive, but man, it would be nice if I wouldn't have to stand in the same area. I wouldn't have to have one specific sweet spot that I'm always standing in all the time. Have you thought about implementing that into your classrooms yet?
We're looking at it. We actually don't have any. We actually recently got one of the Sony Edge Analytic box, which has a camera auto tracking function. They also have handwriting extraction, and we're experimenting with that. We're literally in the process of building it into a room as I speak, where we're going to be playing with both of those functionalities as part of a pilot to see if it gets us the performance that we're looking for.
And Jeff?
Yeah, we tried some of the early versions of auto tracking cameras and found that we had more complaints than it was worth because they weren't smooth enough. They were real jerky and hesitant. Something that we've been having some success with more recently in the last, say, 5 years is actually establishing some teaching zones within the classroom space and using IR sensors to actually tell the camera where the person is. And that works to a point, but with the improvements of auto tracking camera technology, I'm interested in looking and seeing what's there available on the market, and maybe trying some new things we haven't tried before.
Yeah, I think that one thing that would really help that out too is if Zoom and Teams and these other organizations would make it where on the far side you could actually select the option, and then we'd have that as an option in the classroom. I can tell you that students would love that because right now it is very complicated to do that, and you have to do it from a very high-end IT admin side rather than from the student use side when you're talking about Zoom inside of a university campus. So I think that would be a good way to go. That question, so far, the answers coming in are not until the fall of 2021 is the majority answer right now. We'll see what the final results come in. I'm wondering, Dan and Juan, I'm wondering what y'all think about that. I know, Juan, you've been up and operating. Dan, you've been up and operating. You've had to serve your clients regardless. But are you seeing were a lot of projects, Dan, put on hold within your own organization to steer money to other projects to just get through some period of time? And are those coming back online yet?
Yeah, so allocate a lot of money to Zoom.
Oh, I'm not hearing you, Dan. Sorry. I'm gonna have to
go back off and back on.
I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
Got you, Dan.
So we did have to allocate a lot of spending money. We were a Skype house. We jumped to Zoom. So start spinning up Zoom on the government side took a little bit of our allocated money. We did take we did delay from basically April to November, spent a lot of our spend just because of that. And the end of we still wanted to hit our budget for 2020. So we ended up pulling the trigger on a lot of the USB centric devices like Logitech, like we said, and Sony. We spent a lot of money on displays. We are now taking that money that we spent. We sat on it a little bit because we know that we're doing all of our 400 campuses. We are probably going to consolidate. Our CIO feels like we are going to, most of our work from home, people that have determined that we can work from home are going to stay working from home. So we're going to consolidate a lot of our buildings. So our main buildings that we're considering the collaboration buildings, we've retrofitted. We're going to try to retrofit 200 rooms in the next 6 months to that platform. We call it the 80-20 rule. 80% is going to be Sony. The displays, not projectors, but we do use their laser projectors as well for our bigger spaces. And then we have some allocation, just under $2 million in allocation for a lot of our, we call showrooms. We're doing them in Rochester, New York. our Melbourne campuses. We're building a really beautiful campus up in Canada and West Cam. It's a 4-story building. I think we have 160 displays going in there in the next 2 months. That's about a $2 million project. And we partnered with Logitech and Sony on that, and Chief. So Salt Lake City and then our Texas campus are our next 2 targets. We have about 400 rooms with those. What are we going to spend, and then what are we going to retrofit those rooms like? What does it look like coming back? Those big spaces that we used to use have now, we don't use them as much. We've actually kind of mothballed a lot of those spaces. So what will that look like? I think, like everybody said, we're waiting till I think the vaccines come in, and then people feel more comfortable being on-prem with each other. A lot of our stuff is in vaults, so obviously in secure high areas, that stuff, they're all blocked off and locked off. So that we obviously can't talk about, but our outside space, that is, we're planning on 80% of our rooms in the next, or out of those 400 rooms or 200 rooms that we're going to try to retrofit. And I don't want to say too much because our reps will get excited.
Yeah. Well, Juan, same question for you, Juan. I mean, if you could separate out the part of your business that's going to the high-end homes versus the part of your business going to the corporate applications, where do you see this breaking out? Are you seeing it now, or are you seeing it in the fall?
It's a crapshoot, but we're seeing a move a lot on the residential stuff going now, and surprisingly enough, there's a lot of commercial places that want to get, because we're basically a construction job, so they want to get ready before people come back, and eliminate any annoyance for their patrons or customers when they're coming in. So it's all over the place. Some people want us in now, some people want to wait. But for the most part, we're seeing a lot of movement in both businesses and residential for sure.
Referenced the results a minute ago. I'll give you the final results for that poll. 42% said not until the fall of 2021. 38% said 3 to 6 months from now, and 18% said 0 to 3 months. I think part of that's going to come down to what part of the market you're in. If you're in higher education and K through 12, you don't have a choice. It's now to 3 months, meaning now. So we don't have a choice.
Nothing was delayed on our end.
The question is, though, I am curious about this, Rob, because the question is, wasn't money shifted, though? I mean, like, you had projects that you probably had rooms that you planned on doing. Did those rooms get accelerated, or did money get moved from, hey, instead of sending this big chunk on this extra thing that we wanted, we're going to deploy that into putting PTZ cameras in every classroom?
We didn't have to shift any money, in part because we had 3 new buildings commissioned within the last 5 months. The big one was $145,000, but we had our science building was damaged by one of the hurricanes a couple of years ago, and we had to completely gut it down to the steel and concrete. So we brought about $4.5 million worth of AV online in the last 5 months. The classroom upgrades we did because of COVID, we managed to get CARES money for. So we didn't have to move any money around internally. We were able to get outside funding for that. Had that not occurred, then we would have had to do the dance. But we were lucky in that we were able to procure that.
Jeff, I have a question from AV Trainer who said, first off, congratulated you. The recent stream presentation from the University of South Carolina during NAM's Believe in Music Week was amazing. One of the highest quality live stream portions of an event. What of your installed system made that happen as well as it did? And do you see your school prioritizing more investment in these types of systems? What do you feel is currently missing or must have for these kinds of applications?
Yeah, so I think we're fortunate in that, first of all, we have a really robust infrastructure, which always helps. And we also have really good quality people that are working behind the scenes that make this happen seamlessly. I think most of everyone on the panel would agree that a lot of times people that are viewing these things assume that some kind of magic happens, or it just happens, and it's just something that just appears on the screen to them. But the behind the scenes work that people do, and I have a media production team that just works endless hours in making the university look good. And so, it's very apparent when you see those kinds of things and you see feedback like we're getting today. That's, kudos to those people. It's not just the technology, it's the talent behind the technology as well.
I'm curious, have you had this problem, I guess specifically, Dan, have you had this problem with regard to the learning curve of, customers in these collaboration spaces? Or do you feel like the equipment is easy enough to use and this concept of one-touch join has really made it easier, or is this sort of a myth?
So the one-touch to join's there, except on the government side, the high secure side is not for us. So it's not that if it would work, we just don't have calendaring turned on. But I will say, I think the training of us, as we've learned just how to use a camera on a computer, is kind of the same thought. You join a conference room, you walk into a conference room with a computer, the display's a little bigger and the camera and speakers are a little bigger, but they know how to go into Zoom settings and change it, as well as Teams or Skype. So those are the three main profiles that we're, unified platforms that we're using today. But that's not to say that we can't use any other platform. As far as the user knowing how the conference room is, and that's kind of stands on the standard side of things. If we had 7 different manufacturers with 7 different displays, and we learned this a long time ago when I was an integrator and designer, if I did LG or Sharp or any one of those, didn't matter. If you use a different manufacturer, every room, it's hard for even the engineer or the tech to support it, to understand. One of the beautiful things about Sony TVs and displays are they have a pro mode, and that pro mode, as a setup in the TV, we can change all the settings. So the dynamic control, the LED lights, the inputs, we can basically, if you plug a computer in and the resolution pops up, you can tell it to stop showing that stuff. So when we deploy the displays, we can do that at a mass deployment. So when we have 400 or 500 displays to deploy, it's super easy, and we know. So if a computer person walks in from IT, they know that input 1 is a house PC and input 2 happens to be Air Media, and then as well as the Logitech stuff that's next to it. And it's just easy for us to be able to deploy that and then maintain. And again, service and support is one of the, it's almost bigger than, deploying the hardware. But sticking with Sony, again, using the word partnership, we have partnered with them, and we've stuck with Sony for over 2 years now, I think it is. But when we learned that back 10 years ago, that was one of our lessons learned, that hopefully we don't forget. Make it easy for the user and try to take as much choices in the deployment away from them. So
yeah. By the way, our next poll question is up, our last poll question, which is, how has COVID changed the way in which you interact with your customers and audience? I think, this, I'll be really interested to see what people think about that. Less engagement, more engagement. Has that come true on the university side? Rob, I mean, I'm gonna aim this at you. Has your job been made easier now that the professors were forced to learn how to use USB switching on their computers and adjust cameras and center themselves? Because these are the things that would throw them off. Just something like knowing to switch USB inputs on microphones and cameras. Has this has made your job easier when they're coming back to the classroom?
I would not use the word easier. It is repetitious. So from a support standpoint, because we big believers in standardization, we've done that all across campus. So it's made it easy that the questions that we're getting are the same questions. Okay, how do I switch to show my doc cam? Well, you go into, share my screen, advanced, second camera, click yes, you're okay. So we can talk people through it like that. And also all of our instructor stations around campus have computers. All of them have software that lets us remote into the computer and connect with it remotely while not turning it off on the far end. So it's not like remote desktop, but it's similar. So that we can actually walk people through and show them, not just tell them, but okay, you see here, click this button. Okay, click this button, and typically they're able to learn it. We don't have too many frequent flyers, although there are some special ones.
Yeah, of course. Jeff, same question to you.
Yeah, when we pivoted to online, I think that some of our administration thought that it was as easy as just the application of technology and making it work. And so that was certainly a challenge of ours. Was probably one of the biggest challenges. But another part of that was actually preparing faculty to kind of augment their instruction and transition to using the technology in a different way. A lot of them were teaching from home now, and they had never done that before on their laptop. So providing webcams to them, teaching them, having training opportunities for them to attend little training sessions where we have folks that could step them through any of the technical issues that they would have. And then being able to be having those same resources accessible as the semester continued was also important. So it was two parts of it. It was the application of the technology, but also having the resources available to that faculty could rely on when they needed help.
The poll results for question 3 are up. The answer most often selected was more engagement with virtual meetings was 50%, less engagement is 34%, 14 same or more creative. That kind of surprised me a little bit. Jeff, I'm going to throw a question back at you because one of the questions that came in from one of the viewers was specifically around from Kevin Nicorak was specifically around coordinating streaming from multiple venues at the same time in a concert application, like a music concert application where you have musicians in different location. You've obviously set the standard. Are you working on that next so that everything is synced and it provides because we are going to be going to concerts in a different way for a while, right? That provides an interesting alternative.
Yeah, so early on, our School of Music had some concerns around some of the platforms that we had put, in place for them to use, and there were some audio synchronization issues with. We were using a solution that's part of our LMS, which is a Blackboard, which is Blackboard Collaborate. That was one solution. Another was Microsoft Teams. And both of them were not to the level of quality that we needed for our School of Music. So we adopted Zoom, and Zoom allowed a little, improved. Their audio algorithms were a little bit better, I think, for live performance. And that's something that we're continuing to use today.
There's the question that came in. I think it might be directed at Rob, but I'm curious. You all could kind of answer this question. Joni Grob asked, Grob, I think is how you pronounce it. What did you say you switched to as an improvement over lavaliers? I know that the answer in general was microarray systems. I think maybe more specifically, what are you using in your classrooms? Which ones are you using?
We're using the Shure 910.
Okay.
MX.
And Jeff,
we're using the same ones.
Same one. Sorry, Rob, I cut you off. Were you gonna?
Well, Sony's come out with a new product. They actually got us a demo unit. That's the one Dan was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. So we're experimenting. So that's the model that we've been going with. So we just kept at it, but we are constantly looking at what else is on the market because better is better.
Dan, what about you? I know that you mentioned obviously the system like the Rally Bar has a microarray built into it for small meeting rooms, but what about larger spaces?
Yeah, so we've partnered with Shure. Shure, the MX series, they make the 710 series now, the 910. The 910 has been out for, I guess, six years or so. We fell in love with that. It was so easy to use. Even the first gen, which wasn't even as strong as they are now. The 3 series that sits on the table for our high level. So we talked about the 80%. Now this is the 20% rule. So when we get into the 20% rule, obviously we're going to Sony projectors, and then Shure is my go-to. That being said, because of DSPs are getting so strong now, the P300 is a staple if it's less than 9 channels of a Dante. If we get into the bigger channels of a Dante, we've been a buy-amp house for forever, so we integrate if the 910's in the ceiling, it's great. But obviously for us, that no PAG, potential acoustic gain, as you're sitting in the room, the closer that diaphragm to the mouth or the speaker or the talker is better. So we have auto gates and switchers that'll switch over to the, a handheld. An SM58 on a transmitter is never sounds any better than, so that's generally what we do. We are a complete shore house. But.
And Juan, I'm curious, this question's for you. You're an immersive technology in itself. I'm curious if you've looked at AR and VR, specifically VR technology, in some of the future things that you're planning on doing. And then I kind of want to flip that question back to the university guys as well with regard to VR. So Juan, what about you?
I think it's definitely part of the path for the future. Can't really comment much on that, but because we just launched our new game software for the simulators with some amazing features. But yeah, that's definitely in the path forward. It's not, I don't know how soon, but yeah, for sure. And
what about the university side? Have you played around with the idea of immersing a student in a class at a different level? And I know that you all have programs where professors and students are building VR environments. What about you, Jeff? Have y'all talked about that at all?
Yeah, we actually have a virtual environments kind of working group, if you will, that is made up of technologists, faculty, and research folks who are really taking VR and trying to adapt it to instruction. Our med school is something that's they're very interested in the VR technology as well as some of our other programs, but it's something that we're not fully adopted, but we do have a VR lab, and we have other programs that are like I said, looking to adopt or seeing how this immersive technology actually can help their instruction.
Yeah, we actually had an interesting question, or an obvious question, I should say, from the audience about getting in touch with each one of you. I would highly recommend that you go to your LinkedIn profiles, just put in their names, you'll find them. And their names are right there on the screen, because these gentlemen are all available on LinkedIn. And it's a good way to kind of get an idea what their background is and actually connect with them. There is a messaging platform there as well. I'm wondering, I'm going to go through each one of you and ask, for a single question, a single answer to this question. In the last 6 months, first off, Jeff, we'll go back to you. In the last 6 months, what's been the one product that has saved you the most? What is that one thing that you're so glad came along?
I have to go back to the beamforming microphone system. It's just made our lives a lot easier. It's made setup easier. The quality is superior to what we've been doing in the past, and it's just getting better.
All right, Rob?
I'm going to give you two answers. One is beam array mics. And the AV over IP, because we designed the building before knowing COVID would be along on some theoretical, we think this is where the industry is going. But we have gotten nothing but fantastic feedback from the faculty to the point where we're taking the design from that building and incorporate it into other areas on campus because it's been so successful from the end user view standpoint.
Dan?
Yeah, so 100% Logitech, USB, the Meetup, the Rally systems. It's just, we've deployed hundreds and hundreds of them, and we keep deploying more and more. Plus what I'm speaking on right now, because a lot of our work's and staff from home. So I know it's a computer and a Logitech Brio, but those are my go-to. If you said bet your job on something, that's what I bet my job on.
Juan?
Juan, you're muted.
I've been waiting for so long to say that. I've been in mute. Sorry. For us, it happened a couple of years ago with the laser projectors from Sony. That changed our product, our customer experience for sure. And then lately, it's been the new GPU for NVIDIA that we're using in our new PCs to support our new gaming platform.
Yeah, and Sony's got a heritage in gaming, and I suspect that they're going to be a big player in the VR market, and that's why I asked that question. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today. This was a great session. This panel was recorded. That was one of the questions that was asked, is how to get a hold of this if you want to refer this to other people. You'll get a follow-up email from Sony that'll probably tell you exactly where to go get that recording, or you can go back to the page where you registered. I'm sure that'll come in as well. And we didn't get a chance to answer every single question because we are limited in time. But you know, there are, you know, what's great about this is there was a lot of interest in this panel, and you gave some very specific answers, which I love, because you said, these are the products I'm using, these are the ones I like, this is where I'm going. And I think that's what the market needs to hear. And one other little comment I'll make about laser projectors is that what's interesting about laser projectors, you can take, and I've seen this happen in a classroom many times, you can take a projector that's 1280 by 720 or 1020 by 768 even, and pull out a lamp-based projector, replace it with the exact same resolution laser projector, and everyone comes into class the next day and thinks that the picture's higher resolution, because laser just gives you that much better colorimetry, which the human eye picks up as resolution. You know, it's depth of perception. And I think all of the panelists here have talked about the importance of laser projection, is especially as we're going to be doing more social distancing, places where we would have normally used monitors, we're going to have to spread out. Thank you very much for the panelists. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thanks Sony for doing this Think AV panel, because this is what we need nowadays. We need thought leadership. We need people to come aboard and tell us what should we do next, because we're all a little bit nervous about what's going on here. It was a fantastic panel. I want to thank everyone, and everyone have a great day. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you.